Hello everyone, it's Arifire here. Welcome to another episode of All Talk, No Shock. But before we get started, a bit of housekeeping first. I've done a few Through the Looking Glass videos recently. I did Red Alert not too long ago, and that's done okay. Before that I did do one on Scorponok, which was the first Through the Looking Glass video to actually reach 100 views. Generally they've always been around the 70 mark, so yeah, quite pleased with that one. But also you may have seen me do a little snippet video on my Facebook page where I've actually upgraded my computer, and I've decided to build a computer. I bought some parts and I racked my brain to put it all together and try and upgrade my programming in every sense of the word. I also have been talking to Brad of Exilion XLR, to give him his full YouTube title, who sort of talked me into upgrading my editing software. I've had a quick go on it, seems pretty good. If you see a sort of change in the quality, good or bad, in the next few weeks, then you'll know it's me getting used to a new system. But that's enough of that. Shall we get on with the video? No shock. So this is something I've planned in for a little while. We all know that the matrix of leadership, generally when it goes to its new host, it upgrades you. It upgrades your powers, just turns everything up to 11. We've seen it in the Generation 1 cartoon and in the Matrix and in the latter series of the Generation 1 cartoon in Dark Awakening, where Optimus Prime gets the matrix of leadership and really goes from Orion Pax to Optimus Prime. He becomes this super warrior, super spark, as he's sometimes referred to. It's the matrix enhancing every fibre of your being. This is really seen, of course, in the 1986 movie, where Hot Rod, who is the chosen one, who then becomes Rodimus Prime when he gets the Matrix. So I thought, who else could get an upgrade with the Matrix? Who else could be the next chosen one and upgrade from who they once were? And what would they become? How would they look? How would they act? What would they be called? And that's what we're here to talk about today. So we know about Optimus and Rodimus, but what about Ultra Magnus, who was past the matrix of leadership when Optimus fell in the Battle of Autobot City in the 1986 movie? Spoilers. But he was not deemed to be worthy. He was not deemed to be the chosen one. But what would happen if Ultra Magnus was deemed worthy? Now recently you may have seen Bumblejumper82 do a video on this, and he beat me to the punch, cheeky Ed. But he was absolutely right, and great minds think alike. I believe that if Ultra Magnus did have the matrix of leadership and was deemed worthy, he would upgrade, not so much on a physical appearance, he's already pretty impressive, but his colour scheme would change to his more Diaclone original, and he would become Delta Prime. Now he's already a city commander, he's already a warrior, so there wouldn't be much in terms of firepower that can be particularly upgraded, but he would just fit into that leadership role, and he probably wouldn't explode into a million pieces as soon as he took a few shots. So next, what about, in my opinion, who the next leader of the Autobots would be? And that is Bumblebee. Now, depending on the universe, depending on the continuity, he's already been a leader. In IDW's world, he was the de facto Autobot leader in a post-war Cybertron, so he's proven he can command. So what if Bumblebee did get the Matrix? How would this physically change him? Well, if he goes from his 1986 or 1984 Bumble VW design, he would probably upgrade to a more of a movieverse Camaro design. There's a much more of a fierceness about that kind of mould, and he would have all of these integrated arm weapons that the Generation 1 Bumblebee didn't particularly have, so he would become more threatening. He would grow into his leadership role because Bumblebee's always been seen to be very reserved, second-guess himself. But as he would have the Matrix, there would be this more confident young leader, much like Rodimus Prime would become. In terms of his name, it's a hard one to pin down, but I'm thinking more towards the Cyberverse cartoon and one of his attacks that he can do in that. I believe with the Matrix, Bumblebee would become Stinger Prime. Okay, now onto something a bit more lavish, and here we are in Generation 1.5 with Thunderclash. Now, Thunderclash is already really a leader. He is the leader of the Throttlebots, which is really all that's left in a Generation 1.5 going into Generation 2. But he is a new Optimus Prime. He was meant to be, but everything is dialed up to 11 anyway. His personality, his colour scheme. So To imagine Thunderclash with the Matrix, I think the first question is, doesn't he have it already? And you'd be forgiven for thinking so. Now, if Thunderclash had the Matrix, would he look any different? Absolutely not. He already looks amazing. He looks so eccentric, very 90s, bright pink colour scheme. So I don't think there'll be any physical changes here. I don't think there'll be much firepower here. As you'll recall, his original toy, his trailer turned into a big fire platform anyway. So all that really would change would be his name. And Thunderclash is obviously a great name, but this one kind of speaks for itself. Thunderclash would obviously become Thunder Prime. So now moving on to more recent times, we're looking at EliteOne. Now, Elita has led underground resistance forces before, and in more recent times, in the War for Cybertron Earthrise series, she is seen to effectively be leading the majority of the Autobots, so it's not unrealistic to think that she could lead the Autobots full-time as a Prime. But if EliteOne did receive the Matrix and was deemed worthy, what would change? Well, physical appearances, it's anyone's guess. Should she become a bit more like her Titan's Return figure or Power of the Primes figure? There's a bit more, I guess, of a grandness and a spikiness to her physique. Maybe it's something that could go into the Combiner War side where she effectively became an Elita Combiner. It's a hard one to say how physically she would look any different. She's already a very capable warrior and a very good strategist. So physical firepower, I don't know how that would particularly change. Maybe it's again just her same qualities just dialed up. But the thing that is pretty clear is what her name would be, what she would be called, and she would simply be Elita Prime. And now finishing off with the big one himself. Now, Grimlock, of course, has led the Autobots famously in the Marvel comics. When Optimus is no more, Grimlock takes over as a very natural leader, a very aggressive leader. But we haven't particularly seen Grimlock in a leadership role other than leading the Dinobots ever since. I've never particularly understood why. There's a big asset to use here. He is a very big character, very big personality, and a very long history in Transformers. Why wouldn't a Dinobot be your next Prime? It's a frightening thought because he is a loose cannon. But what would happen if Grimlock got the Matrix of leadership? Well, we pretty much would just see the Marvel comics. We would see this ruthlessness to lead, this aggressiveness all around. Physical appearance can't change. The only thing I can think of is that in his beast mode, in his dinosaur mode, there's very much like the aligned continuity, the original War for Cybertron video games. That beast mode where it had a very square jaw, square head and a long whipping tail that he didn't particularly have in Generation 1. That would be the only physical change I could see in Grimlock because he's already a huge dinosaur and a huge hench robot mode to boot. So what would change for his name? Well, you can go two ways with this. Grimlock could become Reximus Prime. That's very tempting to do that. But my personal favourite would be simply Dino Prime. And there you go. That is just some of the characters in the Transformers universe who could have had an upgrade through the Matrix of leadership and how they would have turned out, at least according to myself. What do you guys think? Is there anyone I've missed out who could have had an upgrade? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Like, share and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.